So today I want to show you guys how to build a few of the modules that I have inside of my blank song template here. This is what opens up every time I start a new Reason file. And I mean, it's got everything from starting off your own blank drum kit all the way to mixing down your final track and mastering it out. So there's obviously a bit of complicated routing going on in here. And I do plan on showing you how to do this whole template here in the next tutorial. But in order to do that, first I want to show you how to build a few of the modules that are inside of it. So that way when we do go through the whole process, you can just pull up the files you've saved already, and we'll really cut our timing in half. So here's what we're really going to be focusing on today is the MPC-Style sample chops. And we're going to do this inside of a Kong drum combinator. There's two methods to accomplish this. The first is nice and simple with a Nurse Rex loop player, but this one requires a pre-built Rex file, which if you don't have Recycle, you're going to have to go out of a sound bank, and it's not going to be as custom as you want it. Our second method, if you're taking something from a vinyl or a CD, MP3, whatever, we're going to chop that up inside the timeline here, render it out as its own individual files, and then we're going to set it up to use the Nano sampler here instead of the Rex file and map everything over the pads here. So let's get right into building that. But before I start, real quick, I want to show you the first step in every single machine I ever build is right-click, create instrument, blank combinator here. Now this is something I save out before I start anything. I did it once, and now it's the start of every single machine I build. It's a combinator, which you can do by right-clicking, create combinator, and a line mixer. Now, this is a great place to start off with any synthesizer or effects patch or whatever, because instead of trying to add and reroute this mixer once you've already got half of your work done, it's already in there as soon as you pull up your new instrument automatically. Now, you may be wondering how I got this artwork up here. I've showed it to you in the last tutorial, but those who didn't see it, if you right-click and select backdrop here, both the combinator and the Kong have options to create your own artwork in a JPEG file. They have templates for it on the install disks for Reason, and I believe probably on their website as well. So when I save this out as a blank combinator, you can see this is what I pulled up before. So every time I start an instrument, create instrument, blank combinator, we're all set up. The artwork's here, the mixer's here. I can, add whatever instrument I wanted to create, and all my prep work is kind of done. Now, in order to get to this MPC machine, erase this. We're going to start with a new blank combinator patch, add a Kong drum designer. Now in this one as well, as I just mentioned, you can select a backdrop, choose my Kong backdrop, and now when I save this out, both of these artworks are going to be automatically in there every time I create a new blank version of this instrument. On pad 1 here, we're going to come down to the programmer and add a Nurse Rex loop file. And if I pull this up and just pull out a random loop from a Prime Loop sample pack I have. Now if we see, the dog's shaking. Now if we see, I hit pad 1 and it's going to trigger the entire loop to play. Which of course is not what we want. We want this sample mapped out over all the keys. So if I come over to my drum assignment here and hit the Q, it's going to show my assignment numbers for every single pad. So I can do this nice and quickly. We're going to set them all to pad 1. And now every single pad here is going to trigger the nurse rex loop file that's on pad 1. The only problem is now you see, now they all trigger the full loop, which again, we still don't want. The way to fix this is to come over here to the hit type. Again, hit the Q button so we can see them all at the same time. And every one of these is going to be set to chunk trig, which is hit type number 2. Now what this is going to do, if you see the sample here, chops are moving and they're being assigned to each one of these pads as I go through. Hold on, 2. Let's hit the Q to come back. And now you're going to see now everything's mapped out to its own key. And if we come in here, that's already pre-built. Let's come down to something that's got instrumental. Let's just pull out a random piano. Now you can see that's all pre-done. So real quick, I'm going to clear this out and add it back in just so it's blank. And I'm going to save this patch out as, say, a blank MPC combinator. And now every time I load this up, it's going to come pre-built with my artwork, a line mixer if I want to split up my effects, or if I want to add a separate version of this Kong and chop up samples and drums at the same time so they both trigger when I hit any of these pads. This is going to be real easy to just reroute. Again, as you saw right down here, it was real easy to just change out whatever sample loop I was going to play with, and it automatically routes it out to my 16 pads here. So this one's really versatile. It's really easy, but again, you're restricted by the pre-made chops that are here in the Rex file, unless you have propeller head recycle, which again, a lot of people really don't. I'm assuming. Anyways, well, let's get on to the second file. I'm gonna start a new video here, and we're gonna show you how to chop up a sample that comes off of vinyl or MP3 or wherever else. All right, let's see there. Okay, now for the second version of this MPC chop machine, we're going to want to import some audio. Go up top and select import audio file. Let's use maybe this. Maybe just that simple little loop there. Now this can be any loop you took off of a record or an MP3 again, you know, wherever you happen to find your loops. I'm sure they look similar to this. Mine just happens to come out of a Prime Loop sound bank. So let's play this and hear what it sounds like. All right, so I heard a few things I wanted out of there. Let's go through each part and we're gonna chop up exactly where we want it to be. We'll turn the snap off here and go to our razor tool. And then with the command plus and minus buttons, I'm gonna zoom in to the timeline here. So right off the bat, let's go in here where that first one samples up. And then trim the fat off the beginning. Bring my cursor to this next part. And then with my razor tool, I'm going to just slice that there. I'm going to do a real quick, rough version of this. You can take all the time you want, getting the specific sound out of every sample you want. But as you can see, I'm just going through and I'm selecting the beginning of where I see this sound wave starting. Each time a note's played on the guitar, you can kind of see the difference. Let's say we probably want to cut it here. And we're just going to go through the whole track that way. Looks like we might have it. Oh, maybe not. Okay, just a couple more. Okay, and then let's zoom back out. And now we see if we change back over to the pointer tool. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So some of these aren't going to work. Let's get rid of these ones because I believe they're repeats. Three, 7, 10. And then let's get rid of these two. Now what we want to do, we're going to make 16 audio channels in our timeline here. So I want to click on this one here and hit Command D. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 times. That gives us 16 versions of this. Go in here real quick. Just erase everything out of those next 15 channels and go through your samples that you've chopped up now here and drag them to the beginning of the timeline on every single track that you just created. And it looks like we're one short. That's not really going to matter, but just for the hell of it, let's chop up another piece of that one. I'm going to hold Option and then drag that down. And now we have 16 samples that these will each end up on the 16 pads of your sound bank in the MPC. Now, you probably don't want to hit play here because it's going to play them all at the same time. It's going to sound like garbage, obviously. I'm going to trim this one short. So what I want to do is take the loop, the right hand loop, and bring it to the end of the longest clip that I have here, the longest sample. And then I want to come up here. Oh, I'm sorry, you can't see this. I want to go up to File. In the File menu, if you scroll down past Export Song and Export Loop, you get bounce mixer channels. So I'm going to click on that, and this is the menu that pops up. If I check all of these, you see it's highlighting every single one of these tracks that I created here in the timeline. I want to deselect all these effects tracks on the master so those don't bounce out. If you want to hit normalize, you're welcome to. This will just bring all of your samples here to the maximum volume before they clip out. Apply mixer settings. We're going to select none for this because we started off with a normal sample and we didn't add any effects inside the mixer or anything like that. And then down here, range to bounce, we're going to choose loop because we set the loop end here. And bounce to audio files on a disc, not new tracks in this song. We probably want to set this up to 48 and 24, 48,000 and 24, just so we have the highest quality of sample that we can. And now that these are all set the way we want, click OK. we're going to come out to whatever folder you choose. Let's name it Guitar MPC Chops. Sorry, MPC Chops. Choose that folder. Right now it's working its magic, bouncing it out. And as soon as that little dial goes away, we're done. I want to close this just because we don't really need it. We'll start off clean. And then let's create a new one that's blank. So from here, we're going to create an instrument. Again, like I showed you before, I just pull up a blank combinator. It gives me exactly what I want to start with, and it gives me some flexibility later on. I'm going to create a Kong drum designer. Come down here to select backdrop, add my custom artwork in there. And then in the programmer here, on pad 1, I'm going to select an NN Nano sampler. Now, if I double click on it on hit type 1, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to find where I just saved out those chops that we just created. I'm going to find the first one. Groove 1. There we go. And now this is set to trigger pad 1, hit type 1 on the first sampler. What I want to do now is go through 2, 3, and 4 and select the next sample that I created in the last setup. And just like we did last time, we're going to come into here and select these pad assignments. The first 4 of them are going to be to pad 1. And now you're going to hear they're all sampling this first hit type. And just like we did on the last sampler, we're going to go through to pad 2, make that hit type 2, and you see here this is hit type 2. It's going to play the second sampler. On pad 3, we select hit type 3, and now this is going to play the third sample. And again on pad 4, hit type 4. So now we have the first 4 parts of that chop we made in the last session. We're going to go to drum pad 5, create a sampler, and then Nano. Do the same on pads 9 and 13. And we're going to go through that whole process we just did on pad 1. For hit type 1, I'm going to do copy number 4. And again, in my drum assignment, I'm going to set those all to be pad 5. So they all trigger this same sampler that's on pad 5. And I'm going to go down to my Q button in the hit type and set those 1, 2, 3, and 4. So now when I go back here, this is sampler 1. And that's sampler 2 on each hit type 1 through 4. I'm going to go through the next 2 rows here with the same process and just speed through it so you guys get the idea. Okay, now everything's done here. I have 4 samplers on pads 1, 5, 9, and 13. And their hit types 1, 2, 3, and 4 are then going across these rows. And now we have the 16 samples from the last session that we chopped up from our vinyl sample or wherever, mapped out over these 16 keys. And there you go. That's how you do it. You got 2 different styles of MPCs and your own blank startup kit for every instrument you want to make. Right there, saved off. Let's save this one off real quick as blank MPC. How about blank vinyl MPC? And then we'll save that out and we'll be done to bring it up anytime you want. Now, you saw the ease of swapping out your samples here inside of the Rex looper. This one's not going to be the same. It's going to be this whole process of putting in these 4 hit types per every 4 sampler you have. And this is going to happen for every different song you do, every different sample you decide to chop up. It's a much more elaborated process, but it's a lot more customized to the sound you're looking for. And if you do this and start off with all these blank in your template, you can just go through and add in the chops that you picked out and you're ready to roll. All right, next time we'll show you how to build the full template. This whole template here to build a song from scratch and take it all the way through your final mix down and mastering process. All on the same template with little modifications through depending on how your workflow goes. So we'll see you guys next time. Peace.